Today, we're going to be talking about the presentation section of the closing call script. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, here's the best way that I can describe the presentation. Well, obviously, the presentation is you presenting your offer to the prospect. But the best way that I can describe this section is very rarely are you going to win the sale in the presentation, but you can most certainly lose the sale in the presentation. And that's really important to understand, right? In the discovery section, that's where you're going to win the sale. All right, you are going to win the sale by executing the discovery section really well. All right, and the presentation, if you execute the presentation really well, it's really not going to win you the sale. It's just not going to lose you the sale. There's more wrong that you could do in the presentation section than right. So it's really important to pay attention to this module, but to think about it through that lens. What am I trying to avoid? Yes, try to learn what to do right, and we're by all means going to go through all of that, but really try to learn what to not to do and what to avoid. All right, now, obviously, the overall purpose of this section of the script is to go over your offer and to be really clear and show the purpose of your offer. And we're going to dive into all that in just a second, right? And how long should this section be? We're looking at about another 15 to 20 minutes, all right? So the way that the script is broken down is the discovery section should be 15 to 20 minutes. The presentation should be 15 to 20 minutes, and that should save you another 15 to 20 minutes for closing, objection handling, and all that fun stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about, what are the main purposes of this section? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points here. Okay, well, actually 3 points, and then I'm going to talk about what not to do. All right, so this is like the main purpose of this section. Okay, so the first one here is sell the vacation, not the travel. All right, so let's use this analogy. It's a really good analogy. Okay, so you have somebody who is they're selling a travel advisor, right? They're selling some sort of travel package. Okay, you have two advisors and they're selling the same exact package. Let's say they're selling you a destination wedding, or sorry, a destination vacation to Hawaii. All right, so they're both selling you the same package. Okay, you have one travel advisor that describes it this way, and I'm going to do that in a second. Then you have another travel advisor that describes it a different way. All right, travel advisor one describes it this way. All right, so you're going to wake up promptly 4 a.m. You're going to call an Uber. You're going to, be a little sketched out in the Uber maybe. You're like, is this guy legit? Is this guy not legit? You're going to get to the airport. You're going to go through security. It's going to be a pain in the ass. There's going to be a long ass line. You probably don't have food at this point. Maybe you don't even have, a coffee or a water. Then you're going to get into the plane. You're going to get on that middle seat there. And then after about, a 6 hour flight, you're going to be really uncomfortable, really stiff. You're going to be bored out of your freaking mind. Then you're going to get to your dream destination and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing, right? You're going to have all, amazing memories. You're going to have amazing food, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So that's one way that you could describe your travel. All right. And this would be selling the travel, right? That would be selling the whole entire process. You're selling the travel, not the vacation. Okay. Then you have another individual who's going to sell the vacation and not the travel. All right. So what that would look like is, they are explaining or talking about, you're at the destination already, right? So they exclude all the travel and they talk about the destination, how beautiful it is. They talk about how relaxed you're going to feel, how relaxed you're going to be. They're going to talk about the excursions that you're going to do, how amazing the excursions are, how excited you're going to feel. They're going to talk about the laughs. They're going to talk about the foods, the drinks. They're going to talk about the overall incredible memories that you are going to make. All right. So with those two descriptions, right, the person who's describing the travel and the vacation, and then you have the person who's selling the vacation, they're both selling the same thing. but the individual who's hearing it is going to pay a lot more and be willing to pay for the person who's describing just selling the vacation. Okay. The person who's selling the travel and the vacation may not get the deal and certainly isn't going to get as much money as they are asking for or as they want. Okay. So that's really important to keep in mind, because when we are describing our program, when we are describing our offer, one of the major mistakes that I see coaches make is they get way too bogged down in the details. Now, obviously, I was being a little over the top. No travel advisor would ever describe a travel destination by explaining every step of the process of getting on the plane. But I use that as an example because that's what coaches are doing. Coaches are talking about all the intricate little details of their program, and it's going to stress the prospect out. It's going to confuse the prospect. It's going to overwhelm the prospect. And in the end, it's going to get them to probably not buy. And if they do decide to buy, they're not going to pay what you are asking for. Right. But the coaches who sell the vacation, they sell the destination, they sell the end result, right? So whatever the end result is that you're selling, right? And the end result that you're selling is more of a feeling than an actual thing, right? For somebody who is in marriage counseling or relationship coaching, right? Sure, you're selling fixing the relationship, but really what you're selling is stability, right? You're selling stability in their lives again, right? You're selling fulfillment, you're selling happiness, right? Same thing with weight loss. If you're selling weight loss, sure, you're selling the better physique, but you're also selling the feelings that are associated with weight loss, right? So we have to sell the destination. We have to sell the prospect on where they want to be, that end destination, okay? So that's one way of thinking about it, all right? Now, another way to think about it, and this is more like now we're getting into the tactical here, is some coaches will sell the what, how, and why, and other coaches will sell the what and the why, right? We want to only sell the what and the why, right? When I say getting bogged down in the details, coaches are explaining their program by saying what their program does, specifically how, so the step-by-step of what their program does, and then they bring up the why, right? We only want to say, here's what we offer, and here's why it's important, right? We want to leave out the how, okay? Now, I'm going to give you some examples here, right? But like I said, what we want to do is say, here's what you offer, and constantly tie it back to the why it's beneficial for them and how it's going to help them get to that ultimate outcome, right? That end destination that we talked about in the vacation example. All right, here are a couple examples for you. Okay, so here's going to be the wrong way to do it, and then here's going to be the right way to do it. Okay, so wrong way to do it. At XYZ company, we teach ads to generate leads. So let's just say this is a business opportunity company. It's a business coaching company. At XYZ company, we teach ads to generate leads. You will create the ads, run it to the right audience, and then prospect the leads to book calls. It may cost thousands of dollars and many filming sessions to find a winning ad. However, making this your primary source of lead generation won't make you as reliant on organic social media posts going viral, which we all know is inconsistent at best. Additionally, running ads is predictable, guaranteeing you will always have leads to prospect, unlike other forms of lead generation where you are left wondering if you have leads that day. Okay, so it's not terrible, but it's not right. Why isn't it right? Because we explained the what, the how, and the why. Right? The what here is that we teach ads to generate leads. The how here was this right here, right? The how was you will create the ad, run it to the right audience, prospect the leads, and it may cost thousands of dollars and many filming sessions to find a winning ad. That was the how, right? The reason we want to leave that out of our description is because that's going to cause more questions, right? This really doesn't give them the full scope, right? So they're going to say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. I'm a little confused by that. And if they aren't verbalizing it, they're internalizing it, which is going to cause paralysis by analysis. It's going to cause overwhelm. It's going to cause confusion. And a confused prospect is never going to buy. confused prospect, an overwhelmed prospect is never going to actually purchase your program. All right, so we got to stay away from explaining the details. And the reason we do that is because we're trying to sound smart. We're trying to come across as we know what we're talking about. But I promise you, you're talking them right out of the sale, not right into the sale. All right. Now, here's the right way, right? Only explaining the what and the why, right? Here's what we do. Here's why it's important and how it's going to get you to your end destination. Okay. So same exact offer. At XYZ Company, we teach ads to generate leads. Making this your primary source of lead generation won't make you as reliant on organic social media posts going viral, which we all know is inconsistent at best. Additionally, running ads is predictable, guaranteeing you will always have leads to prospect, unlike other forms of lead generation where you are left wondering if you have leads that day. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a company that wants more leads, right? If you hear this, right, you don't hear the how, you're not questioning how you're going to do it, but what you hear is this. You hear that you won't have to be as reliant on organic social media posts going viral, right? Which is a big, major concern for people. So now you're thinking, oh shit, I don't have to post as much, or I don't have to become internet famous in order to generate leads. That's amazing, right? That's a benefit. That makes the person feel confident. It also probably hits on one of their pain points and probably also speaks to their end destination, which is they don't want to be doing all this organic social media content. All right. Additionally, what they hear is that it's predictable, guaranteeing they're always going to have leads to prospect, unlike other forms of lead generation. So if they're not already running ads and this is a new opportunity for them, they probably are used to inconsistent lead generation, right? So when they hear that this method is predictable and guarantees that they're always going to have leads to prospect, right? That probably also speaks to one of their end destinations, which is consistency. Okay, so just a much simpler, better way of describing your program. All right, so that's point number one. All right, so point number one is sell the vacation, not the travel. Another way to think about it is only speak about each part of your program in the what and the why, and not the what, how, and why. All right, let's get on to number two here, okay? So the second purpose of your presentation is to ensure that they are fully clear on the offer, okay? So the best way that we do that, well, first, why do we want to do that? We want to do that because, like I said, a confused prospect is never going to buy. We want to flush out all the possible concerns that we can, right? So I'll ask questions, strategic questions, and I have this baked into the script. So when we get there, don't worry, it's already baked in there. But really, there are two questions that I'll ask. And I'll ask this like every couple of slides. So like every 2 to 3 slides, I'll ask this question because I'm purposely trying to flush out any concerns that they have. Because if they have those concerns, I want to handle them in the presentation before price is involved, before I pitch them the price. All right. It also gives me an opportunity to tie down those concerns so I know that they are officially solved before we get into, once again, pitching the price. Now, those questions are, do you have any questions about anything? Very simple. And then the other question I ask is there anything else you need, or does this cover it all? And I love that question, right? Because if I just talk to them about our accountability process and I say, is there anything else you need with accountability, or does this cover it all? And they say, no, nothing else I need. This covers it all. That's them selling themselves that this is the right program for them. Okay, so the second purpose of the presentation section is to ensure they are fully clear on your offer. Okay, the third purpose, the third and final purpose of your presentation section is to stack value before we pitch the investment. Okay, so after you've gone through your offer and prior to pitching the investment cost, there are a few steps that you're going to do to continue to stack value even after already going over what your program is. Okay, so there's kind of this weird place in the script where you've gone through your whole entire program and you're going to pitch the price, but there's a couple of steps that you want to take prior to pitching the price that's going to continue to stack the value on top of everything they've already seen, which is your offer. All right, so at a really high level, this is all baked into the script, so don't worry. But at a really high level, it looks like this. So you go over your program, you go over your offer. Before we present the price, right? There are three things we're going to do. We're going to cover our guarantee. So highly recommend that you have a guarantee. If you don't have a guarantee, go back to that module, create a guarantee. All right. You probably don't want to fly into this without a guarantee. Okay. So we're going to cover the guarantee, stacks value. So they just saw your whole entire program. Now they're going to hear about your guarantee. They just saw the whole entire program. Now they're hearing about your guarantee. Holy shit. So I'm promised this result, and they already saw and are in love with your program. Okay. After that, you'll go over your same day bonuses. So if you sign on today, not only are you going to get everything that we went over, not only are you going to get the guarantee, but you're also, if you do sign on today, you're going to get all these extras as well. So now we're really stacking that value. All right. And then the last slide before we pitch the price is we're going to go over testimonials and potentially something called client data, which I'll explain and show you later on in this module. Okay. So think about that. Prior to hearing the price, they've seen your whole entire program. They've seen your guarantee. They've seen your same day bonuses. They've seen your testimonials. They are primed and ready to go. And that's when you pitch the program. Okay. So recapping the purpose of the presentation section, we're going to sell the vacation, not the travel. We're going to speak to the parts of your program as what and why, not what, how, and why. Okay. We're going to ensure that they're fully clear on the offer. And then we're also going to stack value before pitching the investment. Now, here's what you want to avoid. Okay. So you want to really avoid over explaining, right? Like literally, I say it here. The worst thing you could do when presenting your program is over explain and talk too much. When you do this, you run the risk of your prospect zoning out, getting confused, and being overwhelmed. The goal is not to sound smart, all right, or show them how much you know. The goal is to explain the what and why and sell the vacation. They already think you're smart. That's why they booked a call with you, right? They already like you enough, right? They already somewhat trust you enough. They already think you're an authority. Otherwise, they wouldn't have booked a call with you, right? So there's no need to fill your ego, stroke your ego, or to fill the void of insecurity and try to prove yourself. You don't have to do it. It's talking you right out of the sale, right out of the sale. We do not want to over explain. Okay. Now, in light of that, and sorry guys, I'm getting like progressively stuffier as we continue to film here. Okay. So the other thing you don't want to do is make your presentation too long and too crowded for the same exact reasons, right? Similar to over explaining, when your presentation is really long or really crowded, you're going to run the risk of overwhelming that prospect. And like we've said, an overwhelmed prospect is always going to object and also may never buy. All right. Now, the last thing here, the best way to think about presenting your program is to keep it simple. Imagine you are explaining your offer to a kindergartner. If they can easily understand your offer, then they believe your program is the simplest solution to their problem. Whether we like it or not, prospects' brains, humans' brains, are designed to find the easiest solution. So the more complicated that you make this process, the more complicated you make your presentation, they are going to associate that with your program being complicated. But the simpler you make this process, the simpler you make this explanation, they're going to associate your program with being simple. And if they associate your program with being simple, they are naturally looking for the simplest solution to their problem anyways, and that increases the likelihood that they choose you. I'm going to break down what your presentation should look like. And I have an example from my previous company as well. But before we do all that, I want to answer the question, why have a presentation? All right. If you don't know already, all of your closing calls, your discovery calls can be on a phone call. That's fine. But all of your closing calls, 110% should be on Zoom. All right. It's the best way to look at somebody in the eye. It's the best way for you to read body language. It's the best way for them to learn about you as well. Now, taking that a step further, I believe that one of my competitive advantages in my past 10 years in the coaching space, I've done over 8 figures in sales by the age of 28, is having a presentation. Why? Because I've been on the receiving end of being on a sales call with a coaching company and doing it not on Zoom, but doing it over the phone and not actually seeing what I'm purchasing, right? And to me, it's like, well, I actually want to see what I'm getting into. And when you have a presentation, you can actually show the prospect what they are buying. And I think that is really important, especially when you're in the high ticket coaching space and you're selling something for thousands of dollars. I do think that this is one of the reasons that my close rate has been so high. I do think this is one of the reasons I really don't get a lot of objections is I leave no stone unturned. I show them everything that they are going to purchase, and I really think that works in our favor. Okay, so I'm going to show you the presentation framework, and then you are going to create your own presentation. Now, very simply, you could do this on Canva. You can hire somebody to do it if you don't want to do it yourself, and you don't have to spend an arm and a leg. You can go on Fiverr and probably hire somebody for $100 or a couple $100. Okay. If you want to do it yourself, you can do it yourself. If you have somebody on your team who can do it, delegate it to them. All right. Let's break it down. So, the very first slide is the intro slide. Okay, you should spend literally 30 seconds max on this slide. And we're not going to go over the scripting in this particular video. That's going to be the next video. I'm just going to go over the presentation. Okay, so what's going to be on this slide is the name of your program and then any program branding. Okay, so here is the intro slide. So, this was for my former company. The program that we sold was called Corporate to Coach. So we had the program name on there, become a full-time online coach, because that's what the goal of the program was. We had our logo there. We were accredited through the BBB, the Better Business Bureau. Great business hack if you haven't done that already. And we had an A+ rating. So we put our A+ rating on the screen. We also won one of their awards, which is called the BBB Torch Award. So we put that on there as well. And I would actually tell them that on this slide, right? I would say, our program name is Corporate to Coach. We are accredited through the BBB. We have an A+ rating. We've been accredited through them since 2020. And then, last year we actually won their Torch Award for business ethics. That was literally what I used to say. Okay. So that's slide one, really simple, really easy. All right, slide two is optional, meaning you don't have to do this. Only do it if you have it. If you don't have it, don't do it. Okay, so this slide should take you 30 seconds as well. So basically what you're doing on this slide is, if applicable, like if you have any brand partnerships, company awards, company recognitions, I would put it on a slide. And the goal of that is to leverage trust, right? So if you have brand partnerships with other companies in the space and those companies are bigger than you and have more trust built, then you can leverage that trust by saying, we are partners with this company, right? Additionally, if you have any awards or anything like that, like I said, that can build trust through the prospect's eyes. All right. So what that slide looked like for us is this. We just said recognitions and affiliations. We had a partnership with a company called Everfit. We also were partners with NASM, ISSA, and ACE, which were all big certification companies in the fitness space. And, when you're selling to personal trainers, these names mean something, right? So when they see that, they're like, holy shit, if those companies trust this company, then I should trust this company, right? So like I said, only use it if you have it. If you don't have anything like that, you could skip over this slide. If you do, then let's leverage it. All right, slide number 3, program options. Okay, so this one should take you about 45 seconds. What you're going to put on this slide is just the different program names. If you do have different program names, if you only have one program name, that's fine. If you have one program name, but you have multiple lengths of term, right, then you can give a different name to each length of term for each program as well. All right. Now, you do not want to put your downsell on this slide. Okay. The prospect should only ever know about your downsell if you're objection handling with them and you're choosing to downsell. In the presentation, they should know nothing about your downsell. Like I said, the only time they're going to find out about your downsell is if you pitch it during objection handling. Okay. But in slide number 3 here, you're going to have your different program options. If you do have different programs, If you just have one program with different lengths of term, you can still put that on there. Just give a different name to each length of term. All right. So what that looks like for us is this. So we called it our NLCA Corporate to Coach Growth Path. And then we had three different programs. So we had our group coaching program, we had our one-to-one support program, and then we had our master coach program. And that was really for like higher level students, right? So that's kind of a visual of what ours looked like there. All right, now slide number 4, you're going to have a compare and contrast of who you can help versus who you cannot help. All right, so we only want to spend about 45 to 60 seconds on this slide as well. And really, this section is just going to further cement in the prospect's mind that they are your ideal client. All right, so they should be seeing this. And when you're communicating this, they should be thinking, oh, yeah, I'm definitely the person that they can help. All right, so basically this is what ours looked like. Who can we help? We did the compare and contrast. So on the left-hand side, it was people who we can help, and then people we cannot help. And then we just had bullet points there. Try to keep this simple, right? Don't put hundreds of bullet points on there. I would really define like what are the 3 characteristics of people that we can help? What are the 3 characteristics of the people that we cannot help? All right, now the next slide here is going to be your unique angle or your methodology. All right, so we are going to spend a little bit more time on this slide. This slide should take you about 3 to 4 minutes. And really what you're doing on this slide is you're going to show them the steps of your methodology. So this is really high level how you get your students from point A to point B. So where they're at to where they want to go. All right, so for us in this example here, we were helping people who were in the corporate world leave their corporate job and become full-time online fitness coaches. All right, so we identified our program had 10 steps to which we got them to that point. We got them certified as fitness coaches. We taught them how to be an entrepreneur. We helped them sign their first 5 to 10 clients. We set up their admin systems and got their business legalized. We identified their ideal client and created an offer that matched their ideal client. Then we taught them how to generate leads through social media marketing, right? And then so on and so forth, right? We just laid out the steps. So if you have a methodology, great, put it on this slide. If you don't have a methodology, I would create one, right? 10 steps is the max it should be, right? If it's 3 steps, that's fine. Anywhere between like 3 and 10 steps, I would say is a really good range to be there, okay? But don't overthink it. Like just literally think about and answer the question, what are the steps that we take a client through at a high level to get them from where they're at, point A to point B? All right. And since you have a defined ideal client, this should be relatively pretty easy. This should be relatively pretty simple. Okay. So that's going to be step number 5, your methodology slide. All right. Now we get into step number 6. Okay. So which program is best for you? So this slide should be about 1 to 3 minutes. And this is once again just going to be a high level compare and contrast of each of your programs and having them select which one that you want them to cover or that they want you to cover on the call. Because if you do have multiple programs, you're not going to show them every program on the call because that's just going to take way too much time, be way too confusing. So instead, the purpose of this slide is to have them choose, on this call, I want you to go over that program. Okay. This also like starts to sell them a little bit, right? Because they say like, oh, tell me about that program. So they're a little bit more bought in, right? Okay, now keep in mind, this is only if you have multiple different programs. If your program is the same, but just have different lengths of term, don't, this slide doesn't count. That doesn't count. Don't create this slide. Also, if you have a core offer and then a downsell, that doesn't count either. So this is only truly if you have multiple programs. Like our example here, we have the group coaching program and we have the one-to-one program, right? Those are 2 different programs, okay? And the group coaching wasn't our downsell either. Those were just our 2 different offerings, okay? So only create this slide if you have those 2 offerings. If you have one offering, multiple lengths of term, don't create this slide. And then equally, if you have a core offer and then a downsell, don't create this slide either. All right. But the slide looked like this. So I said, let's see which NLCA program is best for you. And then it went like this. So real high level compare and contrast. We had a 6-month group coaching program, and then we had a 6 or a 12-month one-to-one coaching program. All right. And then I said, this program is for you if blank. This program is for you if blank. I would very high level go over each, maybe 30 seconds each. And then I would say, which one do you want to talk about today? Right? They choose, starts getting a little bit more bought in, and then we show them that program. Okay, so now step number 7, we're going to go over each respective program outline. Now, this is going to take about 5 to 8 minutes in terms of like, this is how much time you should spend on these slides. But basically what you're doing here for each program is you're going to show them your core pillars. All right. And this is where you explain the what and the why of each feature. All right. Now, core pillars typically for a coaching program is going to look like strategy, accountability, and community, but you can define what your core pillars are. All right. So let me go ahead and just show it to you. All right. So for example, for our group coaching program, our core pillars were community, resources, and support. And then underneath each pillar were the actual features that went with that pillar, right? And then on the call, I would explain in a what, why fashion, not a what, how, and why, but a what, why fashion for each feature in each pillar. All right. Now, like I said, I'm not going to show them every single program. I'm going to have them choose which one they want to see, and then I'm only going to show them that program. So this was our slide for our group coaching program, which was less cost. And then these were our slides for our premium 6 or 12 month, right? So we had community, we had resources, we had support. Before I actually showed them anything, I answered the question, what sets this program apart? So I talked about what makes this program different. I used pictures from events. So if you actually have like real pictures where you had some sort of event or any sort of picture at all, like whether it's like you doing or using your program, or if you're, relationship coach, maybe it's you and your spouse. If you're a fitness coach, maybe it's you working out. Use visuals, use pictures. It helps humanize your program and humanize the process. All right. And then I went into each pillar. So each pillar had its own slide. Went over the talking points in a what, why fashion for each one, and then had pictures to support. So we had community was a pillar, support was a pillar, and then resources was a pillar. All right. So that's what it would look like for step 7. All right, now we're getting into step number 8 here. This is the recap slide. You're going to spend about 60 to 90 seconds here. This is a high-level recap of everything that you covered so far. All right, so the recap slide looks like this. Very simple. Okay, just basically it's bullet points of everything that's been covered up until that point. All right. Now, for number 9 here, this is going to be the guarantee slide. Okay, so we spend 1 to 2 minutes there. The purpose here, cover the guarantee, cover the stipulations. And once again, y'all, we have a whole entire script. So you're going to know exactly what to say for each slide. I'm just going over what these slides should look like so you guys have a visual. Okay, so this was our guarantee slide for our 6-month group program. So we had the actual promise on the left-hand side here. We created a little guarantee sticker, which you could do very easily on Canva. And then we had all of the actual terms and conditions, the stipulations of the guarantee on the right-hand side here. This way we're fully transparent. They know what they have to do in order to get the guarantee. And then we had, our 6-month guarantee for our one-to-one coaching program. And then we had our 12-month guarantee for our one-to-one coaching program as well. All right. Then we went over same-day bonuses. So the purpose of that slide is very simply to go over your same-day bonuses. We structured it like this. We had pictures of our bonuses on the left-hand side, or at least some of our bonuses. And then we structured it in this manner. So since we had 3 programs, we had our 6-month group offer, 6-month one-to-one, and then 12-month one-to-one. We just put check mark. We put all the bonuses here, and then we put check marks next to the ones that they would get for each of those programs. And it also shows like, hey, the better the program, the more you're going to actually get as well. All right. Then from there, we went over testimonials. All right, so for the testimonials, this should be about 2 to 3 minutes long. I would definitely, if your program creates a aesthetic before and after where they could visually see a transformation, I would 110% use that. If your program does not create some sort of visual transformation, I would still use pictures in general. Once again, just to humanize. So maybe it's a picture of your client, or maybe if it is marriage coaching, it's a picture of your client and their spouse together smiling. Just something that shows that your program, yeah, just humanizes the program and shows the client with some form of the end result, right? A happy marriage, a jacked body, right? Smiling, happy, happy mindset, whatever it is that you're trying, whatever transformation you're trying to create. All right, and then I would have bullet points of their story. So where they were before, what you changed, so like what you guys worked on, like what strategy you used, and then where they're at now. And specifically, when I say where they are at before, don't just say like, oh, they were 400 pounds. Where are they now? Oh, they're 200 pounds. No, I'm talking about, I want to know the good shit, right? Like, where were they before? Yes, they were 400 pounds, but they were in a sexless marriage. They never went to the beach. Hasn't taken his shirt off in 20 years, right? Like that's the stuff that I want to know. Okay. So what that would look like, I actually don't, if I had to give myself feedback, I actually don't like what we did here. Basically, we did like the picture of the client like this, where they were before in their corporate life, where they are now as a fulfilled coach. But I don't like this. My recommendation to you would I would do a slide per client. So I would have just one slide dedicated to a client, and then I would have about 3 to 5 slides. Now, you're not going to go through every single testimonial. You're going to pick maybe one, maybe two, but you'll at least have 3 to 5 options to choose from. Okay. So I would do one slide per client with the pictures of that client and then the bullet points of where they were before, what you changed, and then where they're at now. Okay, this is another optional slide. This is the client data slide. All right, so basically this is showcasing any client data that you have. Now, you would actually have to track this. So this is definitely more advanced. If you're like relatively new or like just went full time as an online coach, I probably wouldn't suggest doing this. But if you're more advanced, I would 100% do this. Okay, so what this is identifying what client data points do your potential clients care about, right? So for our program here, we were helping people who were in corporate who wanted to go full time. So they probably care about, when am I going to sign my first client? What is my starting monthly income to my ending monthly income? What is my starting client total to my end client total? And what do your clients rate the program on average? So we identified our data points and then we created a system to track those data points for every single client. And then every quarter, every 3 months, we updated our slide with the most accurate data points, right? So on this slide, we would show them our averages. Now we did averages. So what does an average student do? How long does an average client take to sign their first client? What does an average client make monthly? Right? What is an average? How many clients does an average client sign? Right? But you can do top 20%, you could do bottom 20%, or you could do average. I would just recommend doing average. All right. Then we had our pricing slides. So the pricing slides, I'll just get into it. Basically, I would have a price anchor. Now, you could choose to put a sale on there or not. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't put sale on there. But I would put like, valued at blank, offer, and then what the price is. This way, there's some sort of a price anchor, right? So what the program is valued at is always going to be higher than what you're offering it for, right? So for example, let's say it's like valued at $20,000, offer 8,897 bucks, right? This way they're like, holy shit, like there's so much value and this is a steal. I'm getting it for this way. So that's how I would structure my slides. This way, they're not getting sticker shocked, right? Because if they just pop on the screen and they see 8,897 bucks, right? They might think like, holy shit, that's a lot. But if they pop on the screen and they see that the program is valued at 20K, but they're getting it for this, right? They probably won't get sticker shocked. So you're gonna have the name of the program at the top, the whole value anchoring on the left-hand side here, the bullet points of the program. This is more for you, just so you don't forget. You can kind of like, if they ask any questions about the program, you don't have to go all the way back to the other slide. You can just reference the bullet points here. Okay. Now, the last one is going to be your downsell. Okay, so we had, just to give you context, we had a monthly subscription where they can access a community and then also access the course. So it was 147 bucks a month for one option and then 97 bucks a month for the other option. So we also have a slide for our downsell, but once again, they're not going to see that slide unless we actually downsell them. But same thing, had the price. We had a special where it was 80% off. They would get their first month for 19 bucks, and then it would just go to the other price after that. Had all the bullet points there, so we were ready to go and locked and loaded. All right, so that's everything that you need to know in terms of the slides that you would have to create. Here's an example. Right down here's the example that I just went through, so you have that to reference from. Obviously, if you have any questions, speak up. We'll be able to answer those questions there. But now it's on you to go ahead and create that presentation slide. So the last question we have to answer in today's module is the scripting. What exactly, word for word, are you going to say on each slide? So let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. All right. So once the discovery ends, right, you finished your recap, we're good to go. Now we're going to share our screen. Now, if you did your pre-call routine, you're already going to have the presentation up as a tab. So you share your screen, you go to that tab, and you should already be on slide 1. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to ask is I'm going to say, cool, can you see everything okay? They're going to say yes, right? Then we're going to say, awesome. Okay, well, hey, let's get into it. Before we do, though, do you have paper and pen? Do you have something to take notes on? Right? Make sure they have something to take notes on. Why? Because one of the purposes of this section, as you know, is to create clarity. And when somebody's taking notes, they're writing down what they are listening to. It's going to better absorb into their brain. They're going to be a lot more clear on what you're offering. So really imperative to make sure they have paper and pen, something to take notes on while they're listening to you give the presentation. All right, we're still on that intro slide. So we're still on slide 1. All right. Now, what we're going to say here is we're going to say, great, the company name is XYZ. If you didn't know that already, I'll probably have to go and talk to my marketing team. And I like to throw a little joke in there. I like to throw little jokes in there, here and there, to lighten the mood, right? Not make it feel so tense. Keep the room kind of loose, right? And I'll say it exactly in the tone that I just did. All right, then I'll say, the program that we're going to be talking about today is XYZ, and that's where we help ideal client overcome challenge so they can ultimate outcome, right? So I'll give you an example. So I'll say, the program we're going to be talking about today is my 30-day, I don't like that. Let's do my dad bod. My dad bod accelerator. And that's where we help dads like yourself overcome, busy schedules so they could become a superhero for their kids. Right now, if you didn't know this, we also have an XYZ rating with BBB, and we've had that rating since XYZ year. All right, so that's how I would do it. That's what the flow would look like. That's what the sound would look like. Upward reflection in the voice, right? Excitement. I want to exude excitement on that slide number 1 there. Now, of course, the BBB line is optional. All right, so now we're going on to the next slide, the recognitions and partnership slide. Okay. Now this slide, as you know, is optional. We've already discussed that. But if you are going to decide to do it, basically it's just highlighting and covering what's on that slide, right? So I would say, now we do have some really cool affiliations, or I would say, now we do have some really cool partnerships, or now we do have some really cool awards, right? Whatever you decide to put on that slide, I would just say, I keep messing that up. Now we do really have some cool blank, whatever it is. We are backed, affiliated, partnered with one XYZ, right? Whatever it is. We also have accomplished, insert awards and recognitions. Pretty cool, right? Right. So it's really like I said, this slide is 30 to 60 seconds. So you're just gonna say, so we do have some really cool affiliations. We are partnered with XYZ company. If you want to say the way we got about that is blank, blank, blank. Now, we also have some really cool accomplishments. In 2020, we achieved blank. In 2021, we achieved blank. Pretty cool stuff, right? And then that's literally it. All right. So now we move on to slide number 3. All right. So this slide is the program option slide. All right. So program option slide, once again, really high level view. All right. Well, yeah, let me just give you the visual representation. I think that is the best thing to do. I know I already did this, but I want to be extra, extra thorough. Okay. Bear with me as this loads. Always tends to load really slow when you're on Zoom. All right, there we go. So once again, this is the intro slide. So everything I said here is for that slide. All right. This is going to be the partnerships and recognition slide, right? So that's going to be everything I said here. All right, now we're on this slide here. Okay, so this slide right here. All right, number 3. All right, so this is the program options slide. So what we say here is at a really high level, we have X number of programs, right? Could say we have 1 program, we have 3 programs, we have 2 programs. Hopefully you don't have more than 3 programs. I would say at a really high level, we have 2 programs. We have our blank program and our blank program. And if you have 3 programs, you would say at a really high level, we have 3 programs. We have our blank program, and our blank program. Then I would say, our blank program is for the individual who described their ideal situation. And then I would repeat that same sentence for however many programs you have. All right, so I'm just going to do it with this example here. All right, so I would say, awesome. So this is our corporate to coach growth path. So we really have 3 programs. We have our group coaching program, our one-to-one program, and our master coach program. Now, for the group coaching program, this is really for the individual who's just trying to dip their toe in the water. What we teach in that program is everything you need to know to get your business started, but not how to go full time. Now, our one-to-one coach program, this is our premium program. This is our fully immersive program for the individual who wants to start and go full time as an online fitness coach. Now, the Master Coach program, this program is invite only. This is only for online coaches who are making at least $10,000 a month and now want to hire, scale out, and build a team. That's literally what I would say. All right. So from there, yeah, this is only structured this way if you have multiple options. If you have 1 program, then just explain the ideal situation for that 1 program. Okay. So my example, obviously we have 3 programs, but if I had 1 program, I would just say at a really high level, we have 1 program. That program is designed for XYZ person. That's all I would say. All right. Now we're moving on to the next slide here. Okay. So the next slide, who can we help? So very simply, what you're going to do here is you're going to say, okay, so now let's get into who we can and who we cannot help. All right. We can't help. So we cannot help people who blank, 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 right? List out the points. Now we can help people who blank, blank, blank. Would you agree that you fall into the can help category, right? So you want to ask them a question. So basically going over who you can help, who you can't help. And then at the end, you want to ask them like, you're in that can help category, right? And you want to get their buy-in and get them to say, yes, I'm in the can help category. All right. Now we're getting into the unique angle and methodology slide. And by the way, guys, I'm going to have a vault of actual call examples of like on a real call. So you'll see how this plays out and in real time. If this isn't hitting as well or as well as you hoped in terms of like me covering this. But hopefully it is. All right. So now we're going over the methodology slide, right? So the methodology slide is this one. All right. And basically what we do here is we say, great. So this is our X step process, right? And we call it our corporate to coach method or whatever. We call it our XYZ method. All right. So great. So this is our 10-step process. We call this our corporate to coach method. right? Once again, this process really helps unfulfilled corporate professionals leave their job to become full-time online fitness coaches. And then you go right into explaining each step. Now, I'm not going to explain every step for you, right? But I'll go over a couple just so you have a good understanding. So I would say, all right, so really exciting. This is one of my favorite slides. Now, this is our corporate to coach method. This is our 10-step process on how we help unfulfilled corporate professionals go full-time as online fitness coaches. Now, step one, if you're not already certified, we actually do have a certification in-house. Now, this is really important to us. We want to make sure that you're doing good work for your clients. This is also going to make you feel confident as well. Now, notice how I just did the what and the why there. The what is we have our own certification, and the why is it makes sure their clients get results and makes them feel confident, right? Which is the destination, the result that they want. All right. Now, in step number 2, we're going to focus on entrepreneurial mindset principles. And the reason we want to do this is I know you're coming from that corporate world. We want to fast track you to make you feel and have the mindset of an entrepreneur, right? What and why. All right. All right. Then from there, we're actually going to get you your first 5 to 10 beta clients. Now, these are low paying clients. They're not going to be paying your premium prices yet. But the purpose and the reason why we do this is to get you experience. We want you to work with a couple of beta clients so you have a full understanding of all the processes and systems, right? So what and why, what and why, what and why. And I do that for every single step. Okay. Now, at the end of that, right, I'm going to ask them if they have any questions. So basically what I'll ask 2 questions after I've gone through that. I'll say, great, do you have any questions on these steps? And if they have any questions, I'll answer them. All right. And then I'll also say, great, awesome. And how are we feeling so far? So far, so good? Yeah, everything's great, right? Once again, it's conditioning them that things are going really well. Okay. Now we go to the which program is best for you slide. All right. So then I go, great. So let's see which program is best for you. All right. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to say, for the context of our conversation today, which program do you feel is a better fit for you? Which program do you want to hear more information about? We have option 1, which helps blank type of client. We have option 2 that helps blank type of client. All right. So in real time, I would say, all right, so for the context of our conversation today, which program do you want me to talk more about? We have our 6-month group coaching program, which once again is going to give you all the information you need to get your business started, get you your first handful of clients, but it's not going to help you go full time. This is really for the person who just wants to dip their toe in the water. Then we have our 6 or our 12-month one-to-one coaching offer. And this is really for the individual who's dead set on becoming a full-time online fitness coach. And this has all the steps from A to Z on how to go from unfulfilled corporate professional to full-time coach. Which of those 2 options do you want to hear more info about today? So that's what I would do for that slide there. What'd that take me? 45 seconds, maybe. Okay, now you're going to spend majority of the time in step number 7. Right? Remember, step number 7 is once they tell you what program they want to talk about, now you're actually going to be displaying and going through the program. All right. So from there, you're going to say, awesome. So for our blank program, whichever one they chose, we have X number of key pillars. So for our example today, we have 3, right? Awesome. So for our 6-month one-to-one program, we have 3 key pillars. We have our accountability pillar, our community pillar, and our strategy pillar. Now, before we get into those pillars, I want to answer the question, what makes this program different from all the ones that you've seen out there? You'll answer that with a quick 1 to 2 sentence, okay? Then you'll start with pillar 1, right? And with pillar 1, so you'll say, starting with pillar 1, blank, which whatever that pillar is, and then you're going to explain the pillar in a what, why fashion, all right? After you've explained a pillar, you're going to say, any questions on this slide? Awesome. Anything else you feel like you need with the accountability pillar or the strategy pillar or the resources pillar, or does this cover it all? All right, then you're going to repeat C through E, which is these 3 right here, for all the remaining pillars. All right, so I'm not going to go through and give you the example for every single one because, like I said, I have videos that will do that for you. But I'll just give you like a real quick, like this is what it's going to sound like. All right, awesome. So for our 12-month one-to-one coaching program, we really have 3 key pillars. All right, we have our community pillar, we have our resources pillar, and then we have our support pillar as well. Now, before we get into all those pillars, I always get asked this question, so I just want to get ahead of it. But what makes this program different than all the other coaching programs in the industry? So we actually have a 2-to-1 ratio. So what that means is for every 2 coaches, there's 1 student. Now, more specifically, you're going to get 2 1-to-1 coaches. You're going to have a 1-to-1 business coach, and you're going to have a 1-to-1 sales coach. And I'll explain that more in just a second here. All right, so getting into pillar number 1, community. All right, and then from there, I would explain each aspect with what, why. At the end of that slide, I would say, great, do you have any questions on this slide? Awesome. And is there anything else you feel like you need with community, or does this cover it all? No, chat, this covers it all. Boom, okay? Once again, we're selling them with every question that we ask there. Then I do the same thing for support. Then I do the same thing for resources. All right. Now, let's see. I did have a couple of things here. Okay. Now, when it does come to showing resources, here's how I would handle it. So if you're in a B2B or a biz op offer, so biz op would be like business opportunity, right? So like literally the example that we're going through today, I have a business opportunity for corporate professionals. You hate your corporate job, you want to start an online fitness business, that's a business opportunity. Or B2B, which is you're selling to an already established business. So if those are your offers, I would show as many resources as you can without taking up too much time. So for example, we had a course in our business opportunity, our corporate to coach program. So I showed them the course, right? Because I thought that was an important thing. It's a big part of the purchase. So I showed that to them. I showed them the modules and explained the modules in a what, why way. All right. And you'll see that in the example that I give you guys. All right. Now, if you're a B2C, so you're selling business to consumer, so that would be probably the majority of you guys, which is, fitness coaching, relationship coaching, personal development coaching. I would kind of shy away from showing the actual resources. So I want to make sure you're hearing me here. All right. So you could show them these slides. That's not what I'm saying. Show them the community, show them the support, show them the resources. I'm talking about actually showing them the resources. So for example, in fitness, if you have Trainerize, I wouldn't show Trainerize. Or if you have some sort of app, I wouldn't show them the app, right? So I wouldn't actually show them the physical resource. I would just show them the slide and explain the resources in a what, why way. Same thing for support, same thing for community, right? So don't actually just show them the slide, don't show them the actual resources. Reason being is I've noticed that in B2C offers, when you show the resources, it actually has a negative impact. It actually causes confusion and overwhelm and questions, and is going to hurt your chances of selling that person. But for BizOp, right, it actually doesn't overwhelm them when you show them that stuff. It actually gets them excited and legitimizes the offer. All right, so you could show them the resources there. All right, so let's get into the next slide here. The next slide here is going to be the recap slide. So on the recap slide, like this bullet point says here, you have the bullet points. I don't go over the bullet points. The reason I don't go over the bullet points is it's just going to be really overwhelming. You're just going over everything that you already went over. They're not stupid. They remember what you said. So instead, I use this as an opportunity to ask very specific questions. Okay. So I'll say, awesome. I just want to make sure you feel fully confident. Really, did you have any questions after seeing everything today? Like now that you saw everything, do you have any questions? Right, so that's one question I ask. All right, then once I get an answer to that question, I ask this next question. I say, great. And is there anything else you feel like you would need, or do you feel like this is enough to help you reach and then insert their goal? Losing 30 pounds, making $10,000 a month, whatever it is. Okay. Then after I get an answer to that, I'll ask one more question. I'll say, amazing. Lastly, after seeing everything, do you have any concerns that popped up for you? All right. And the reason I want to say, do you have any concerns that popped up for you, is it's just a different way of asking, like, do you have any questions? Questions is like more clarity. Concerns is I'm trying to suss out any potential objections before they become real objections. Okay. So 3 questions I ask at the recap slide. So once I'm at the recap slide, I'm here. I don't actually recap anything. I just have this here as a visual representation, but I'm going to ask them, do you have any questions after seeing everything? Do you feel really confident that this can help you reach your goal? And excuse me, do you have any concerns after seeing anything? Okay, so those are the three questions I'm going to ask. All right, now we're going to get to the guarantee slide. All right, so basically on the guarantee, we're just going to go over the guarantee. We're also going to go over the stipulations, and then we're going to ask them if they have any questions. All right, so what that looks like is awesome. So we do have a guarantee with our program. Our guarantee is blank. Now, obviously, there's terms and conditions here, and being transparent, those terms and conditions are blank, blank, blank. Basically, those terms and conditions are everything that you would need to do to get that guaranteed result. This is our way of having mutual accountability. Any questions on this? Right, so let me give you an example here. All right, awesome. So this is our 6-month career protection guarantee. We do have a guarantee with our program. So what we're promising is in 6 months, you're going to become a full-time online fitness coach. And if you don't, we're going to write you a $6,000 check. Now, we're not just going to send you a $6,000 check. Obviously, there are terms and conditions here, and those terms and conditions are right here. Now, you can read these if you want. They're also going to be in your contract as well. But basically, this is everything that you would need to do to actually become a full-time online fitness coach in 6 months. Now, do you have any questions on anything? Amazing. All right, so I don't sit here just so I wanted to go through that example just so you see. I don't sit here and actually read all the stipulations. I just tell them there are stipulations. They can read them if they want. They're also in their contract. Because if I sat there and read that word for word, it would just take way too much time, cause that confusion, cause that overwhelm. Okay, now we move on to same day bonuses or bonuses if you don't want to do same day bonuses. All right, and what I say here is I basically say, great. So if you decide to move forward today, we do have some same day sign on bonuses. Those are blank, and I explain those in a what, why way. All right, so let me give you an example. Awesome. So if you do decide to move forward today, we do have some really awesome same day bonuses to sweeten the pot here. Now, I know you're interested in our 6-month group program, so you're going to get these 3 bonuses. Now, you're going to get our time management toolkit. I know managing your time can be a lot, especially when you're going from being a corporate professional to an entrepreneur. So basically, these are tips and tricks on how to better manage your time during that transition. All right, so that's I'm not going to go through all of them, but that's the example, right? I create like 1 to 2 sentences per bonus that I remember, and that's what I use every single time. All right, then I say, do you have any questions on these, right? So I'm ending this slide, any questions? Ending this slide, any questions? All right, then we get into the testimonials. All right, so with the testimonials, once again, you're only going to pick 1 to 2 testimonials that really remind you of the prospect. Right. So what I would say here is love it. All right, we're nearing the end of the presentation. Before we get into the investment cost, I'd love to show you some of our client testimonials. And when I explain the testimonials, I'm explaining them. This isn't the script. I'm talking to you now. I explain it as where the client was before, what we did to get them the result, and where they are at now. All right, so I'll give you an example. I'm just going to pull this out of my ass. These aren't actually. It's not structured in the way that I would want you to structure it in. But basically what I would say is all right, cool. Well, hey, we're nearing the end here. Before we get into the investment cost, though, I do want to just go over a couple of testimonials. Now, you actually really remind me of our client, Zach. So when Zach started, he was 200 pounds overweight, right? He was depressed. He was on antidepressants. He was in a sexless marriage. When he came in, we really focused on longevity because what he was doing before is he was just doing these quick fix programs and continued to fail. We said, bro, let's just take it 1 step at a time. We created a long-term plan that had him losing about 2 pounds a week. All right, we are 2 years into working with Zach, and he is down those 200 pounds. He went from 400 pounds to 200 pounds. He did end up getting a divorce, but he found the love of his life. He's in an amazing marriage. It is not a sexless marriage. He is off his antidepressants. He actually is starting a family. He just had his first kid and he's 1 year old, right? So that's kind of what it would look like. I just pulled that out of my ass. But basically you're saying where they were, right? Attach emotion to it. what you did to make the change, and then where they are. Attach emotion to it. All right. Very simple framework. Okay. Do that for maybe 1 to 2 people. All right. The last slide of the presentation, because we're only going over the presentation. The next module is going to be over pitching the price and then objections. All right. So the last slide, and this one's optional, is the client data. So I would not, if you choose to create a testimonial slide and a client data slide, I would not go over both on the call. I think that's overkill. I would choose one or the other. I would choose, I'm going to go over testimonials, or I would choose, I'm going to go over client data. Okay. Now, if you choose to go over client data, it would sound like this. Love it. Hey, we are nearing the end of the presentation today. Before we get into the investment costs, I'd love to show you some of our client data. All right, let me show you what that looks like in real time. Awesome. So we are nearing the end of the presentation. Before we get into that investment cost, everyone's favorite part, I know. I do want to show you some of our client data. Now, these are our client averages. So this is not our best client. This is not our worst client. This is smack dab right in the middle. This is our average client. So how long does it take our average client to sign their first client? On average, it takes them 1.6 weeks from starting the program to get their first ever online fitness client. Now, starting income to finishing income, our average client starts the program with just $464 a month in their business. So most of our clients are brand spanking new, just like yourself. After 6 months, our average client is making $4,617 a month. That's almost a 10x increase, right? And then I just do that for every single data point there, right? So not too long on every data point, 1 to 2 sentences per data point. And then obviously I end that with, do you have any questions on anything?